we have to be ready for the worst.
Director Danny Boyle is teaming up again with screenwriter Alex Garland and actor Cillian Murphy for 28 Years Later, a new zombie film that kicks off a fresh trilogy. The original, 28 Days Later, came out in 2002 and really launched Murphy's career. Then in 2007, we got the solid sequel 28 Weeks Later, but Murphy didn't return and Boyle was only involved as a producer. Spanish director Juan Carlos Fresnadillo took over the directing duties, with Robert Carlyle starring in the lead role. It turned out to be a decent horror sequel, but fans have been eager for a follow-up from the original team ever since. Now, in 2024, it looks like their patience has paid off. Murphy, fresh off his role in Oppenheimer, is ready to dive back into a zombie-infested Britain for another intense adventure. So, here's what we know about 28 Years Later. Originally, the follow-up was set to be titled 28 Months Later, continuing with the movie's timeline-set title motif. However, after so much time had passed since we last returned to this world in 2007, Boyle, Garland, and Murphy thought that the title 28 Years Later would be more appropriate. 28 Years Later is set to hit UK cinemas on June 20th, 2025, but before that, you can catch Cillian Murphy in Small Things Like These, releasing on November 8, 2024 in the US, alongside Emily Watson. The trailer is fantastic. The movie is set in 1985 and follows Bill Furlong, a father who stumbles upon disturbing secrets at a local convent, leading to shocking personal discoveries. The film is already getting strong early reviews, 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 82% on Metacritic. Now, coming back to 28 Years Later. So, is there a trailer for it? There's no trailer for 28 Years Later. That said, when do we get our teaser at the sequel? It'll be interesting to see how the creative brains behind this troubling story have upped the ante on their flesh-eating world. The sequel wrapped filming in August 2024, but in September, reports arrived that additional photography was taking place in Bradford. According to reports, Boyle's latest was shot on iPhones, using Apple's smartphones connected to high-end camera lenses. The success of Boyle's original film, complete with its stark and down-to-earth dystopian tone, proved so successful that it gave the whole zombie genre a new lease of life, bringing it back from the dead once more. This resulted in more undead adventures on both the big and small screen, perhaps most notably with AMC bringing us their never-ending mega-hit, The Walking Dead. Although the trailer isn't out yet, we did get a first look on Instagram. Check out Terry the Snapper's post from Northumberland, where Jodie Comer is seen looking battered and stressed while running from terrifying zombies during the filming of 28 Years Later. Edvin Ryding was also spotted on set, playing a Swedish soldier. All pictures are courtesy of Terry Blackburn. Set photos from 28 Years Later have surfaced online, giving us a glimpse of just how much the world has changed since the original virus outbreak. Two of the shots feature Jodie Comer with a rugged new look, perfectly capturing the tough realities of life in a post-apocalyptic world. In one photo, she's seen sprinting, while in another, she stares ominously into the camera. We also get a sneak peek at two younger actors on set, with Danny Boyle seen chatting with them. One of the actors, dressed in full military gear, sports a NATO patch and appears to play a character named E. Sundqvist. 28 Years Later opens up a lot of exciting possibilities with its timeline jump. After 28 Weeks Later wasn't as well received, there were rumors of a third movie, potentially titled 28 Months Later, which would have explored life a couple of years after the outbreak. Instead, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland have chosen to leap forward by nearly 3 decades, offering the chance to create a vastly different world. With Cillian Murphy returning as Jim, this timeline feels fitting since it's been 22 years since we last saw him in 28 Days Later. The long time gap means Jim could be a completely different character now, maybe hardened by harsh experiences, or perhaps he's found peace, only to have it shattered by new events in 28 Years Later. The extended timeline gives the filmmakers plenty of room to explore how both Jim and the world around him have changed. The presence of a NATO soldier in the 28 years later set photos hints that Britain hasn't managed to regain control of its own, echoing a major theme from 28 weeks later. After 3 decades, life for the uninfected could have significantly declined, making the story's evolution crucial for keeping the film feeling fresh and engaging. While Cillian Murphy hasn't been seen in any set photos yet, with production completed, it's likely we'll see him in action soon. So who's in the cast of 28 years later? We've got Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Jodie Comer, and Fiennes all signed up for this one. Joining them are Jack O'Connell from Skins and Erin Kellyman, who you might recognize from Solo: A Star Wars Story. Not much is known about their roles yet, but it looks like O'Connell will have a supporting part in the first movie and step into a bigger role in the sequel. Comer mentioned that they'll be filming in Newcastle, and she's even been watching videos of singer Cheryl to nail her accent. Plus, Cillian Murphy is coming back as Jim, the bike courier turned zombie survivor, but he'll be returning in a surprising way, according to Tim Rothman from Sony Motion Pictures. Cillian Murphy will not only reprise his role, but also take on the role of executive producer for the new film. In a chat with Variety back in February 2024, he shared that 28 Days Later is a personal favorite of his. He said, "I never watch my own films, except that one. It's always on around Halloween, and during the pandemic, people kept sending me clips. I've even shown it to my kids, and it really holds up, even after 23 years. So I'm super excited to get the band back together for this one." In the original film, we saw how anti-animal abuse protesters accidentally unleashed a virus while trying to free lab animals. This virus spreads quickly, turning anyone infected into a rage-fueled killer, and it doesn't take long for it to ravage the UK, leaving destruction in its wake. Murphy's character Jim wakes up from a coma to find this new reality split between survivors and the infected. 28 weeks later picked up when society had finally managed to stabilize and return to some normalcy. But of course, that didn't last long before the undead were back in charge again. So, will there be a sequel? 28 years later will kick off a trilogy, with Boyle set to direct the first movie only. There's buzz that Nia DaCosta, known for Candyman and The Marvels, might direct the second part. Producer Andrew McDonald shared at the 2024 Edinburgh International Film Festival that they've wrapped filming on 28 years later and are already gearing up for the sequel. He mentioned, "We're hoping to make 3 more films in the 28 series, starting with 28 years later, written by Alex and directed by Danny, which has just finished shooting. We're about to dive into part 2 tomorrow morning, and we're aiming for a trilogy." Well, that's it. Please share your views and opinions in the comment section with us. Subscribe to the channel to get updated regularly with the latest update. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you at the next one.